There will be a big-time visitor on campus this weekend for the Louisville men's basketball program. On today's episode of the show, we're explaining why a certain top 40 recruit could help Louisville where it needs help the most. That said, let's get right on into the show.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. As always, I want to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. The Louisville men's basketball team is still in search of help in the front court, and one top 40 recruit will be on campus for an official visit this weekend. That is four-star power forward Khani Rooths. We will also discuss the Cardinals reportedly or rumored to be in the mix for Samford standout Achor Achor. And recently, one of the top prospects in the state of Kentucky was let out of his national letter of intent with South Carolina. Do the Cardinals have a chance with Harlan County star Trent Noah? We break down the argument in the final segment of the show. We were hoping heading into the week that there was going to be some significant news about upcoming visits, about a player cutting his list, Louisville getting severely involved with insert player here. And we got that significant news. I actually got a good amount of news early Tuesday morning, depending on who you value in terms of input and perspective and predictions. But one thing that was confirmed, Travis Branham of 24/7 Sports confirmed that top 40 2024 recruit Khani Rooths would be making an official visit to the Louisville Cardinals this weekend. Huge news for a team that is looking for help in the front court. Ruths is not the largest player, 6'7", 6'8", but plays with a ton of strength and energy around the rim. Was a standout on a stacked IMG Academy team out in Bradenton, Florida. Ruths is originally from the DMV area and was committed to Michigan up until Juwan Howard got fired, and he decommitted after being committed for about 5 months, give or take. Well, his first visit officially after his decommitment will be to Louisville. And we mentioned that portal and high school visits are fairly different in that there is a ton of urgency with portal commitments, and high school guys can take their time. We discussed that in the Jaden Quaintance recruitment. I don't think that this is going to be a recruitment that takes a ton of time if everything goes well on the visit. The hope is that Ruths makes his visit to Louisville, commits shortly after, and the Cardinals add a very talented player to the front court. There's the argument that it could go even longer heading into the end of the spring and summer, but we are starting to get to the point to where it is pretty urgent that players make their decisions, not only for their sake, but for the teams that are recruiting them, because they still have to fill out the roster. And in Louisville's situation, they have 5 scholarships to fill, and I would venture into saying that there's no secret that most of those needs are centered around the front court. Ruths would be a great addition to the team and a step in the right direction. I think at the very least, he is a rotational player in the 2024-25 season. Is he going to be a starter right away? Probably not, I would say. And there's no shame in that, but probably not. I want to read you. Actually, I'll hold the excerpt up for a second. But for those who are sort of trying to get familiar with the style of play, Khani Rooths is sort of a tweener. 6'7", 6'8". They say he can play small forward. I think he's more of a power forward that definitely would play the 4 in Pat Kelsey's system. Really effective around the rim, whether that's offensively or defensively. Does a good job of getting to the rim and finishing around the rim, driving. More of a slasher at this point with growing potential of a perimeter game, because the three-point shot, there's no mechanical issues, and he showed this season as a senior for IMG that he can step out and knock down the deep ball. But right away, he projects, in my opinion, to be a player that will give you high energy off the bench, be able to affect the game on both ends of the court, solid rebounder as well, which is an aspect of, this system that you're going to see really gets a point of emphasis put on it, is rebounding the basketball. Perimeter shooting, 1 passing as well, rebounding the basketball. Ruths, for his position, is an adequate passer. He's just really scratching the surface of his potential. I want to read you an excerpt from Eric Bossy, the National Recruiting Director for 24/7 Sports. He projects him as a Power 4 starter, saying, I'll try to keep this short. As a junior on a loaded IMG team, Ruths was more likely to blend in. He switched 1 through 4 on defense, helped out on the glass, and was able to ground a rebound and lead the team on the break in transition. While he would certainly look to score, he was more of a secondary scorer and at times had to be pushed a bit to be aggressive on the offensive end, end quote. Now, from what I've heard, when I asked people about the type of player that Ruths is, a couple of people mentioned specifically that it looked like a switch flipped in the AAU circuit. The aggressiveness got there. And when I read what Bossy had to say, it all made sense. Bossy says, playing on the Adidas 3 SSB circuit during last summer, he really expanded his game more often. He found the ball in his hands and was looking to get to the rim. Not necessarily a high flyer, but he's got plenty of bounce and, more importantly, a true mover with lateral quickness and the ability to be athletic in tight spaces. Though he's still on the lean side, he has a wiry strength and a frame that is built to carry more weight without costing athleticism. During that summer, Synergy credited Ruths with team highs and 15.6 points per game, 5.5 rebounds. His biggest asset is his ability to be a driver with his size, a quick first step that allows him to be a mismatch against tougher opponents. Still a lot of room for him to grow as a shooter. He shot 41% from the field, 31 from 3. Percentages aren't great. His shot isn't broken. It's just a matter of trying to do less off the dribble and recognizing better shots. The last thing Bossy says is, in addition to improving shot selection, he has room to grow as a passer. He sees some things, but can get a little careless with the basketball and has or does not have a positive assist to turnover ratio during the summer. He needs to be more judicious. Some of the turnovers are a byproduct of having to handle the ball a little more than he probably should. So truthfully, the tools are there for Ruths on both ends of the court. One thing that I think could allow him to see time right away next season is what Bossy said, that switchability on defense. 6'8", 200 pounds, able to guard the 1 through the 4 is a very valuable skill to have if you're wanting to play young. If you're wanting to play right away as a young player. Not to mention, he's able to put the ball on the court and get to the basket. He's solid in transition. He can lead the transition. There's a point of emphasis on rebounding the ball where he is proficient. So a couple areas, defense, rebounding, and driving the basketball are all three that could mix together and grant him opportunities to play early. But like Bossy said, he is not a finished product on the court. The skill set is growing and improving, and it will continue to do so. Thankfully, Louisville has some guys that can go out and get buckets to where Ruths doesn't need to be a player that is relied upon to score double digits a game. Could he be one? Maybe. But should you rely on him to be that player right away? No, you shouldn't have to. And that's a testament to what you've done for the team, not only in the front court, but on the team overall. I do think that even if you were to land Ruths, which that is the hope, getting a top 40 player committed, which would be huge for this recruiting class that does not have one player in it, you still need some front court help. You need some veteran presence in the front court. Ruths would be a great step in the right direction because you would assume that he is a multiple-year guy, and heading into year 2 would play a much larger role. And that is the focus. That is the hope. Like I said, some of these moves you have to, play towards the future. But if you can still get some production right away, then it's a best of both worlds type situation. So huge news having Khani Rooths on campus for an official visit. The interest would have to be pretty solid both ways because of the timing of this, and here we are May 7th, and it just makes a lot of sense that there would be some urgency. But like I said, multiple needs in the front court. My top front court option right now is Samford star Achor Achor. When you really break down the context of what Achor did this past season for the Bulldogs, it makes it that much more impressive. It's going to be an uphill battle, but I'm going to explain to you why he's the player to offer a huge amount of NIL to. And I will explain that here momentarily after we tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Cardinal fans, thanks again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. Just a reminder that if you are becoming less and less of a fan of mainstream media like Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day, you need to make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Achor Achor from Samford is a player that would be my #1 priority in the front court. Now, I made a point right before the break and said that he's the player that I would offer up a ton of NIL money to. The only thing that I forgot is that might be a little bit difficult with the international side of things. I don't know. I think for every player it's different. But, however, I'm not sure exactly with players that have come from overseas, like Rain Smith, Ali Khalifa, insert international player here, how that works with NIL. Because I know it was a talking point with Zach Edey in Canada. I'm not really sure how that works with every player that's coming from an international country. So that is TBD. If it is a situation where Achor can't get NIL, or if he can, it's a situation to where, it can only be from his native country, then it makes it a little bit different. He is he played at Green Forest McCaleb Christian Academy. I believe he's from Australia, but played high school ball in Florida. But nonetheless, that's TBD in terms of how NIL will work in that situation. But Achor Achor, he's a phenomenal player. Statistically speaking, he averaged 16.1 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, shot the ball 59% from the field, 44% from three on 2 attempts per game, 71% from the free throw line, 1.8 blocks per game, 0.8 assists per contest. Want to know what makes this even more impressive? Is that he only played 22.7 minutes per game on a nightly basis. Before you start to complain, understand that Bucky McMillan, the head coach at Samford, runs a system to where they press almost all the time. They sub constantly. So no individual player is getting an extraordinarily huge amount of playing time. That's just the nature of the style of play that Bucky McMillan preaches and he runs. So not only is he averaging 16 and 6, but he's doing so in like half of a game per nightly basis. The statistics are impressive in their own. Achor Achor is 6'9", 227 pounds, moves really well for his size, can play in transition, shoot the 3 ball, and defend. In other words, he is the perfect fit at the 4 in a Pat Kelsey offense. Now, most of his attempts will come from around the rim. He is 6'9", 227 pounds, so he can play inside as well. 66% of his field goal attempts come from around the rim. He was 65% from the field in those situations. He is extremely great in the pick and roll situations. He ranks in the 89th percentile as a pick and roll, pick and pop man. And in catch and shoot situations, 96th percentile. So extremely deadly when he's involved in the screen game and he's able to step out and hit that shot. He's fantastic in catch and shoot situations. Most of his three-pointers will come from above the break. He shot like 65% above the break on the right side, 30-something% from the left, and it made up about 20% of his overall shots. So offensively, he plays with a high motor, strong, but with a quick first step, and the ability to hit the three-point shot. So sort of like a unicorn-type skill set. But what makes it even more impressive, we keep getting more and more impressive, is the 14% assist rate. Again, something that is emphasized is the ability to willingly pass the ball and pass the ball at an effective rate. And Achor does that with a 14% assist rate. He is active on the boards, 11.2% offensive rebounding percentage. So every skill that you're looking for a power forward to have in a Pat Kelsey offense, Achor possesses. He's a good defender. He is solid in the pressing situation on defense. And he has, I had to double take on this, an 8.9% block rate. He's not going to be the best rim protector in the ACC, but an 8.9% block rate for a 6'9" power forward, that's incredible. Simply incredible. So it's going to be a tough battle, and people are probably asking, well, you've talked about why he would fit, but why are you talking about him in the first place? Well, for starters, again, I mentioned something at the very beginning. It depends on who you value in terms of opinion. Trilly Donovan has been almost absolutely perfect when it comes to transfer portal predictions and talking about which schools are involved. Donovan said in his Discord on Tuesday morning that Louisville is involved for Achor Achor. So that's why he's being talked about. Now, the Samford star is scheduled to make an official visit to Auburn next week. So I didn't say it wasn't going to be an uphill battle, which it's going to be. Achor, if Louisville is in the mix, then it shows that, they're at least going to try. You have to try to get a visit here. That's the main thing if you are the Cardinals. But like he is like the player that is the best fit for this team. Maybe, and I say this without hyperbole, there might not be a better fit of any player that has entered the portal to date that would play as well at the 4 as Achor would in a Pat Kelsey offense. So just a name to focus on. But if we're talking about names to focus on, let's go back to the 2024 recruiting class. I think I said 25 earlier. It's 2024 recruiting class. Trent Noah played at Harlan County High School, runner-up in the state of Kentucky. Recently got released from his national letter of intent, and 2 schools immediately rose to the forefront of discussion. You know who those 2 schools are. I don't have to really break it down, but we will identify those 2 schools coming up after we tell you about our friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. You talk about this all the time, but look, there's so much good stuff to pass up. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. From unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, or hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. Monopoly Go is the new and exciting way to play Monopoly with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. There's always new timed events that help you win large, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench. Go and download it for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Trent Noah was one of the few stars of the Kentucky State High School basketball tournament this year. The 6'7" Harlan County senior set a record for points scored in the high school basketball state tournament, which is the Kentucky Basketball Sweet 16. The main story is Travis Perry, Kentucky signee, winning the state tournament. Trent Noah was probably the best player at the tournament in terms of just strictly looking at the Sweet 16. I have announced a couple games that Noah has played in, like Malachi Marino we talked about yesterday. Trent Noah has played at the King of the Bluegrass the past couple seasons with the Harlan County Black Bears, and he's been fantastic. Every game that I've announced, he has taken over that game. The 6'7" wing is a phenomenal shooter, and he's an underrated driver to the basket. Overall, just an extremely polished shooter, polished scorer overall that makes great plays. Recently got out of his national letter of intent, and 2 schools, Louisville and Kentucky, are the 2 that are being talked about the most. Lloyd Gardner, former Hall of Fame coach from Fairdale High School, won a couple of, I think at least one state championship, maybe multiple with Fairdale back in the 90s. He said on the radio that Trent Noah is, or wants to be a Cardinal. This was before this, obviously, but wants to be a Cardinal. Now, Noah is being talked about by the majority of the Kentucky fan base as an option. And it feels like Kentucky, if you made me choose who I felt like was leading this recruitment or the early leader, I would say probably Kentucky. He probably would end up at Kentucky. It's going to be an uphill battle for Louisville. Noah is ranked as the 105th best player according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, 25th best small forward, second best in the state of Kentucky. I don't care about the ranking. The guy can ball. Fantastic. Louisville will need to quickly prioritize him. He would fill a couple of needs: spot-up shooting, three-point shooting, great passer, solid size, being 6'7", averaged about 27 as a junior, and got better and better. So, if it's a Louisville or Kentucky battle, then the player is probably worth it. And I believe that Noah is an ACC caliber player. Let me rephrase. He is like a blue blood caliber player. He's a multiple year guy that I think fills a shooting need right away. But in terms of his overall scoring abilities at the next level, I think that's to be determined. But I think at the very least, his floor at the college level is going to be a rotational player in his career. And if that is his floor, then you're like, okay, perfectly fine with me. So it's going to be interesting to see how this recruitment sets up, because I really could see it being a complete Louisville versus Kentucky race. Now, it doesn't help that Trent Noah is not from the city of Louisville, which it feels like if it's an out-of-city player, the nod is probably in the direction of Kentucky. You have to hope that Lloyd Gardner is correct on this one and that he wants to be a Cardinal. Another aspect of this is who will prioritize him more? It's hard to tell because both teams have new coaches. If we're also talking about all angles here, where does he have the fastest avenue to playing right away? Arguably, I'd say it would be Louisville, but both teams are having to completely overhaul the roster, so who knows? No clue. We'll see what happens. But it's not going to doubt me, or I'm not going to doubt that it's going to come down to both schools. Kentucky probably would be the team that I would predict ends up with Trent Noah, especially if Louisville. Then again, I don't know if getting a commitment from Khani Rooths would make such a difference because they play two different positions. But it's a worthy question to ask. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm extremely excited to see what this weekend has in store for not just Louisville in terms of Khani Rooths, but other recruitments as well, because Louisville still has 5 scholarships to fill. Some will ask, would you take commitments from Ruths and Noah? Oh, 100%. 100%. Because you're playing for the future, but you also have guys that can affect your team immediately. And getting those 2 guys, you still have 3 more scholarships to go out and get a center, get a big man, get a starting power forward, whatever you need to get. So not really worried about that, but we'll see what happens. That's going to wrap up today's episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. We will see you right back here